we are recording another episode of my podcast. We're doing a live version. If I can find my garage band of which to. Oh, there we go. Garage band. Yeah, thank you guys for hanging out. Got this halo above my head. That's strange. And yeah, I record this. I record Monday through Friday. I missed last Friday, but I upload once a week. So, boom, boom. There we go. There we go. So today we're gonna. All right. Well, you guys are gonna find out what we're talking about. Welcome to another episode of Before You Kill Yourself with your host, Leo Flowers. I am Leo Flowers. Today we're going to talk about mystery, how not knowing keeps us going. Yeah, the beauty of mystery, uncertainty, and why we as humans, we need the unknown. We need it. It keeps us going. We think we need to know. We like certainty, but that usually does us in. It leads to inflexibility. And I tell you what, I'm going to start you off with a mystery. I'm going to start you off with a mystery of our house. And I'm not going to give you the answer. We're not going to solve the problem till the end of the episode. That's right. Oh, I know. Look at that cheap hook I'm using to lure you in. So we've been in our house for almost 5 years. And throughout the 5 years, we've been finding these peanut shells all over the house. Not in the house, but outside, in the backyard, front yard, side of the house. And we have not been able to figure out where these peanut shells are coming from. We have ring cameras. And our ring cameras, like we found some peanut shells in front of our door, and our ring camera picks up is facing outward. So like if we have the Amazon person coming or the mailman, somebody dropping somebody off, a neighbor knocking on the door, any solicitors, we can see who it is. And so when we see the peanut shells at the front door, we go, oh, now we're gonna nab our person, right? And then we look, nothing. Peanut shells, no person. And then we were like, because we got coyotes, we were like, are coyotes dropping off peanut shells? Look on the cameras, nothing. We got them on the side of the house, the back of the house. Then we thought, okay, dogs. Maybe dogs or dog walkers. People walking their dogs because our neighborhood, nobody really has a fence up, and we thought, okay, maybe the dog walkers are dropping off peanut shells. Look on the cameras, nothing. And so for the longest, and then we finally, 5 years in, ladies and gentlemen, we finally figured out what was happening. And I'm gonna save that for you to the very end. And thereby lies a mystery. Now, if you figure it out, you'll be like, your IQ must be 150. But if you're like me, you love histories, right? Because they involve like suspects and curiosity and who done it um, and then when you find out the end, the who done it of it, you kind of get sad, right? Because now this thing you put so much effort into searching, like I love to watch murder mystery shows and read crime novels and those types of who done it. And I've linked some of those in the show notes. I love on Amazon they have a thing called Mistletoe Murders. If you have not listened to Mistletoe Murders, it has over 12,000 reviews, 5 stars. This is not an ad. They are not sponsoring the podcast. It's such a soothing it's for any age level. It's very cute. It's very very kitschy, if you want to say that for a audio book. It's the Christmas time mistletoe murders. I linked to it in the show notes. Listen to it. Check it out. You won't regret it. I At night when I'm just pacing back and forth and I just needing to wind down, I will put on Mistletoe Murders. And then I've linked to a TV series on Netflix called The Chestnut Man. Now, that is not for children, that is for adults. But I enjoy that nonetheless. They have 2 seasons. It's a really good whodunit, and I just like the detectives and any crime show, any mystery set in a foreign place like Europe or especially Eastern Europe or Ireland or Scotland, I'm in. I love, I love a mystery that takes place in like European places with vast open spaces and castles and a lot of Greenland and plateaus and it's gray and rainy and I love that. I love those very moody. Yeah, very moody, kind of eerie a little bit, a lot of history. Anyway, but the peanut thing reminded me of how much a mystery can keep us going, how much not knowing something, being curious, wondering, just like, wait, what was that? Wait, I need to know more. Like that moment when your friend is telling you a story and then you lean in because you're like, how is this gonna end? Or how are they gonna get out of this? Like those type of moments, they keep us going. And I bring this up because it's so easy to think that we know everything, right? It's like I have 150 IQ and I went to Harvard and I'm a doctor and lawyer and like but there's so much mystery out there because not just murder mysteries. There's UFOs. We don't like unidentified. There are mysteries out of the unknown. When I was a kid, they said there were what 9 planets, 7 planets, something like that. And now we discovered there are thousands, if not millions, of planets out there. There are all these galaxies. We only talked about when I was a kid. We only talked about the Earth, the Sun, Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, that, and now we're talking about, now we're into the quantum physics of it all. Now we're talking parallel universes. If you talked about that as a kid, you'd be crazy. You'd be a Trekkie. But now we're like, no, the black hole, like what's on the other side? We don't know and we love the unanswered questions, the uncertainty, the unfolding relationships, not knowing who. That's why we love like a new relationship, because we don't know the mystery. Who are they? Oh, they're so mysterious. And then after a few years of marriage, you're like, oh, they're not mysterious. That you go, oh, that's Bill. That's Samantha. That's like Barack Obama talks about that. Like, to us, he was the president and like, oh, we need to know more and he's so mysterious and to his kids he's just Barack or he's dad or that kind of thing. So but why do we love mystery as human beings? Why do we love not know? I think about my childhood, right? Where you open a cabinet because you don't know what's in there. When I go to a friend's house, I always and they hate when I do this and I get yelled at and I probably have not been invited back to my friend's house because I will go into their cabinets to see like what do they eat? What prescription pills are they taking? How do they fold their clothes in there? It's just, I'm a complete snoop. I'm a complete, nosy body. I'm definitely, going to get shot or ostracized or banned just for doing that. And this is why, like as kids, we also like to press buttons. Like as soon as you find out, like the mystery of a kid is as a kid is like trying to find out like what bothers people. Like, do you like this? Like, you always had that kid that'll poke you. Does that make you tickle? Does that make you mad? What about now? What about now? Like we're just so curious. Like you see a bug, you pick up the bug and then you're playing with it and you bring it close to your face. You might even lick the bug. Am I the only one that you're like, what does a bug taste like? I don't know. Um, and I remember, yeah, and I remember being very young, and you'd hear about kids who would use a magnifying glass to burn ants, and I just always thought that was so cruel. I could never do it. But just out of curiosity, I could see kids, playing with fire, talking to strangers, like, who is this person? What are they about? If when you see somebody who is just looks different, just for the context, like if I'm at a grocery store, I remember there was this lady, she dressed to the nines every day, and she was like 65, probably a little older than that. And finally, one day, I was like, "Every day I see you, you're dressed impeccably." And she was like, "Yeah, why not?" And I found out that she used to be an architect. I don't remember if she was married. I know she was single, but I don't know if her husband had passed away. But I was just so curious as to who is this woman who just shows up dressed to the nines, no matter where I could just imagine her even on a beach, like instead of being in a bikini or whatever, like she is suited and booted head to toe. But as children, we are natural detectives. I mean, one of my favorite shows was Scooby Doo, Nancy Drew. I do crossword puzzles. And now, even as an adult, I love to do escape rooms. I don't know if anybody out there has ever done an escape room, but that whole mystery of, like, how do you get from room to room? What are the puzzles? Like, all that stuff is so much fun. So, as humans, we enjoy the temporary confusion followed by a revelation, right? Like we're only typically on board for the ride of the mystery when we feel like we know what the answer is going to be, what the outcome is going to be. That's why we keep reading these mystery novels and watching the shows. And even psychologically, there's this psychologist named George Lowenstein who talks about the information gap theory. And the idea is that curiosity emerges when we become aware of a gap between what we know and what we want to know. Mystery creates tension, but the brain wants closure, right? So, mystery is basically an emotional itch, it keeps us going. So, to me, I think when we no longer want to be here, when we say, life isn't worth it, I think it's because we feel like we know how everything's going to play out. We know what the outcome is going to be. But the truth is, as much as we know about the brain, we still only know like 20% of what the brain is capable of and how it operates. When we talk about the oceans, we still only know like maybe 20%. Like, so much, I think more of the ocean is unexplored than has been explored. We just don't have that capability yet. So there's so much we don't know. And the beauty of mystery, of reminding ourselves that we really don't know things, is that it releases dopamine, right? It's not because tend to think of dopamine as being released just from rewards, like, oh, I got something, but it spikes in anticipation and uncertainty. So when we anticipate things, we can get that dopamine, which makes us feel good and makes us feel alert. And the beauty of that dopamine is we can trigger that ourselves. So one of the questions I ask um, myself before I go to bed at night is, what am I looking forward to tomorrow? What's the one thing I'm looking forward to? Because a lot of times, instead of anticipating the future, we're anxious about the future. We're worried. We're dreading. We are like, tomorrow's going to suck. I don't want to do this. It's Monday. It's Monday, no fun day, right? But if we really took a second, paused, took a breath, stepped back, zoomed out, got some altitude, we'd realize that there is a thing that we're looking forward to. There is a thing that we are excited to engage with. A person. It might be a person. It might be the clerk or the barista or a neighbor. Um, it could be anybody. Somebody walking their dog. It could be, a song maybe there's an album drop tomorrow. Maybe there's a show that is going to be released that you can go watch or that you want to watch. It could be anything, a chance to talk to your parents or write a letter or anything. Side note, we were picking out Father's Day cards yesterday, and this is going to be released way after the Father's Day thing. But my father passed away years ago, and I realized, you know what? I should get a Father's Day card and write in there anyway and mail it. Why not? Like he's not here, but not physically, but I still get to choreograph, dictate the nature of our relationship. I get to choose how I want to communicate with my father. There's no difference in me talking to my father at night, or in my mind, or writing him a card. It's all how I want to communicate with him. So just as a side note, if there's somebody in your life where they're no longer physically there, you can still continue to communicate with them in any way that keeps you going and uh, makes you feel like, keeps them alive in your brain and keeps them present. So coming back to the mystery of it all, the dopamine of it all, slot machines are addictive for the same reason, because of the unpredictability, the mystery. We don't. Maybe this time I'll win. Maybe next time I'll. This is why we hop into. People break up and hop into new relationships because they're like, oh, this new person is so mysterious. Let's find out what happens. So just remind yourself that our brain lights up around possibility, uncertainty, anticipation. Certainty calms us, but mystery energizes us. So we have to find the mystery on our own. We have to present ourselves with questions instead of talking to ourselves with certainty. And when we do that, we're then energized to keep moving forward. And, when you enter a new relationship, right, you just start dating. Oh my God. All of a sudden, we're decoding their text messages, replaying their conversations, we're wondering what they think. We feel like we're discovering them slowly. A new relationship is a detective. I mean, that's kind of why we love those rom coms, right? Because we're like, ooh, who is she? Who is he? Who are they together? And then what are their challenges going to be? And how are they going to, overcome that? I mean, I hate to admit this, but I just watched all three 50 Shades of Grey, and I gotta admit, I enjoyed it. It's a popcorn movie. This is not a movie that you are like, oh, I can't wait to talk about this. This is one of those movies that you watch and then you're done. You're like, okay, let's move on. It's the fast food of movies. Now I'm sure some of you will take offense to that. You felt like you really got it, but it's just so ridiculous. But still, it kept me glued because of the mystery of who is she, who is he, is she gonna submit to his domineering ways, is he gonna become less domineering and more boyfriendish? Is he gonna you know find a way to deal with his childhood traumas and find a middle ground between what he wants and what she wants? Like, are they going to be able to stay together? Like, it really created enough mystery to keep me engaged. And so when we get in a long-term relationship, we kind of feel like this is where people in long-term relationships crumble because they think, oh, I know this person. I know who they are. I know who we are. So you stop asking questions, right? Um, and then we just assume that we fully know that person. But in a Japanese saying, they say there are three selves: the public self, the private self, and then the secret self, right? The public self is who you are to the world and your colleagues and everybody else. And then your private self is who you are with the people closest to you, your family, friends, and spouse. And then there's your secret self, the part that you even keep away from your spouse, right? You might even be ashamed. You might even be keeping this away from yourself on some level. But as Esther Perel says, love requires both safety and mystery. So people die emotionally in relationships when curiosity dies. And I think it's the same thing in life. Like we start losing the will to live when our curiosity dies. Questions couples stop asking are, what are you afraid of lately? What are you becoming? What do I still not understand about you? We have to get back to asking those questions. What are you afraid of? What do you become? What do I not, because no matter how close you are to somebody, there's always an aspect of yourself where you're like, this person doesn't get me. This person doesn't understand this about me. Or this person doesn't see that I'm no longer into that. And now I'm into this. I'm no longer curious about that. I'm curious about this. And so just the same way your phone has to update you, we have to update our partners. We have to be honest and willing to say, here's where I was and here's where I'm at right now. And it's not moving away from us in a relationship. It's so that I can show up um, new and fresh to the relationship, right? So I think sometimes that's why we get afraid of communicating that. Now, when I talk about mystery, there's a there's a word or a phrase that I really want to hone in here, and it's let's find out. Because with certainty, we act like we already know. We act like we already know what our day is going to look like, what our life is going to look like, how everything's going to play out. But I want to replace that certainty with I don't know, but let's find out. And I remember hearing this. I was at a grocery store and I asked the clerk, where such and such was, and he was like, I don't know, but let's find out together. And I was like, man, I love that. The fact that the humility to be like, I don't know, right? I work here, but I don't know everything about where I work, but I have an idea. So let's go find out. And so it was a beautiful invitation into and what felt like an adventure. I was like, yeah, let's go find out. I was like, oh, like I remember having a little bounce in my step. I was like, man, this is cool. Because let's think about it. If outcomes were guaranteed, there'd be no auditions, no applications, no first dates, no adventures, no art. Mystery is permission to move. It's just like a haunted house, right? You don't know that the house is haunted until you go inside. If you're outside, it's just a house. It might look scary, but until you go inside, we don't know. But we tend to project certainty onto things we haven't even entered, right? You meet somebody, you go, oh, that person's going to reject me, or I'll embarrass myself, or I won't get the job, or this relationship will fail. But we don't know until we walk in. Same thing with a job. You get 30 rejections, but on the 31st, you might get the acceptance. Stephen King talked about this, how he threw away the book Carrie before his wife retrieved it. She was the one who was like, no, I think you got something there. He wrote the book and then threw it away. And his wife was like, ah. And then that turned out to be not only a bestseller, but also they made a movie. And I mean, it continues to live on and on. It spurred other types of movies that are similar to Carrie. J.K. Rowling talked about how Harry Potter faced so many rejections and then boom, it blew up. So you don't know that what you have that isn't working. It just maybe it hasn't worked yet, right? And this goes back to like communication because I think sometimes we don't say anything because we go, I don't know what to say, or more specifically, we go, I don't know what the right thing to say is, or I don't want to say the wrong thing. But you have to talk to figure out what to say. You have to improvise. You have to freestyle. You have to be a little Miles Davis, a little Coltrane. You got to play a little with what you want to say to kind of find what it is you actually want to say. If you keep it all in, this goes back to the haunted house. If you never go in that house, you'll never find out what's in there and how to operate within there, right? And then when we zoom out, if you want to talk about science and God, there's so much out there we don't know about our consciousness and dark matter, dreams, time, memory, death. All of this is so unknown. Now, there's a danger. I want to warn you guys. There's a danger of too much certainty, right? You have with all these tutorials and chat GPT and optimization and self-help promises. Self-help is really big on guaranteeing you X, Y, and Z. And it's just not fair. I mean, we expect life to function like customer support where we're just going to get the answers and they're going to solve it. But that is not fun. If we had the certainty, we would have no suspense, no discovery, no wonder, and most importantly, no hope. Now, you say to me, so what do we do? What do we do? We have to embrace boredom and we have to embrace uncertainty because just like the peanut shells, we have to remember that life keeps scattering peanut shells in front of us. And we can make up theories, gather clues, collaborate, get things wrong, uncover partial truths, but there's always another mystery. And as I promised you, at the end of this episode, I was going to tell you where the peanuts came from. Well, we've been having roofers working on a roof for years, on and off. We've had different roofing issues, and they've been eating peanuts up there, and they leave the shells on the roof. Then the wind comes and blows those shells off the roof, and that's how they're ending up on in front of our house, the back of the house, the side of the house, and also why we don't see people on our Ring camera because the peanuts are just flying out. So we would have. It took us 5 years to figure out the answer to that mystery, right? To solve that mystery, and I gotta tell you, very rewarding because it's something we never expected, and it was just a reminder at how life can still continue to surprise us. So, in closing, I just want to remind you that maybe being fully alive doesn't mean solving everything. Maybe it means staying curious long enough to keep entering rooms you don't fully understand. Remember, outside is just a house. The not knowing keeps us going. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. If there are questions, I do have a few questions you can ask for yourself. If you want to journal after this episode, and I do recommend it, some questions you can ask yourself are what mystery is currently animating your life? One. Two, what have you already decided the outcome of before entering the room? Three, where are you demanding certainty before participation? Four, what if the goal isn't certainty but curiosity? And five, what if your life changes or on attempt number 31? So I'll read that last one again. What if your life changes on attempt number 31? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Before You Kill Yourself. Remember, this podcast is not a substitute for you calling the 988 or any of the other 800 numbers where you can chat, talk, or text, or you can go to thrivewithleo.com for one-on-one coaching with yours truly. Let's get to tomorrow together. Boom. Thank you guys. Hello, 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 aliens. Aliens. Thank you guys for tuning in. Another episode.